Hey Run Junkies, many of us have some kind of fitness tracking device when it comes to logging our workouts, but many of us might wonder, what is all of this data? What does it mean? And is it even important? Personally, I love all that data, but I'm a nerd. In short, if you're looking for fitness and performance gains though, learning to just at a basic level interpret some of the data that your device is tracking will help you determine if you need to work on something or if you are seeing those performance gains. So let's try to crack the basic code and analyze some data. I promise this is gonna be fun. First of all, since the device I use is the Garmin Forerunner 235, that is the baseline around which I am going to do this entire video. I'm also going to be using the Garmin Connect dashboards. There are other systems out there like Polar and Timex and other platforms and dashboards you can use. Training Peaks and Strava are other ones as well. Also, some of the metrics that I talk about here may or may not be measured by your device, and I'm not a sports doctor or physician, so if you have any concerns about any of these data points, you may want to talk to a doctor.
When looking at our data, we start with a big picture, a collection of information that shows elevation profile, pace, heart rate, if your device tracks that, and run cadence. This is a 14 miler I did a while back, which includes 5 miles at goal half marathon race pace in the middle of a workout. Yes, this is an older run, but I like how the data in this example is really easy to see. Let's break down the data a little bit, first by talking about the elevation profile. Because this run was so long and Garmin compresses the data into one screen, the gains and losses are more noticeable in this case. So you can do a couple of things to dig deeper into these elevations. One way is by hovering over the profile itself, which will tell you your elevation from point to point. You can also see your overall elevation gain and loss in the stats under the stats tab at the bottom of this page. In the big picture of a given workout, elevation gains may affect your pace, heart rate, and cadence. So even if you aren't thinking about elevation, it does play into the big picture. But what I really like to look at is the pace and heart rate in conjunction. If you train solely by heart rate, you are looking at this data a little differently. You're kind of disregarding pace. So for now, I'm going to set aside heart rate for the moment and look at the pace first. So the first 5 miles were an easy warm-up and training pace. For me, that's between 12:30 and 13:30 minute miles. The second 5 miles, I had a goal pace of 9:45 to 9:50, and the last 4 miles were back at that easy pace again. When I go in to review the data, I see that yes, I did those middle miles faster, but I want to see if I actually hit those paces, so I go into the splits tab at the bottom of the page. Mile 6, I hit it, nailed it. Miles 7 through 10, I got close. So this is where the runner can start asking questions about why. I have a bunch of factors that went into how I did that day, but the point of looking at data like this is to see how realistic your expectations might be, to see performance progression, and maybe see if you might do something a little different next time. But let's go back to heart rate. If you are training exclusively by heart rate, some of this information may not jive with what you do, so stick with your regimen and or your coach's advice. So the first 5 miles were at that training pace, and my goal for that training pace is to keep my heart rate under 150 beats per minute. For the race pace miles though, that effort spiked and my average heart rate hovered around 170 beats per minute and even dropped a bit as I kept the pace higher. The key here though are in those cool down miles where I went back down to training pace. My heart rate dropped down somewhat as I finished off this run. This indicates a strong cardiovascular system that recovers quickly. If my heart rate didn't come back down when I slowed down, that would indicate a problem. Now, would it get all the way back down to that under 150 beats per minute? It may or may not, depending on what the weather is doing and how hard I worked in those race pace miles. Using heart rate and pace in conjunction with one another, though, is how I address whether or not I'm seeing fitness improvements. If my easy runs, my rad pace runs, start trending lower in heart rate overall, or the easy starts to feel easier, I go into the data to see the way things are trending. Lastly, we have the run cadence, which tells us how quickly our legs turn over, how many times our feet are hitting the ground in a minute. Cadence is the rate of that footfall. So if I'm looking at 150 RPMs, that's how many times a foot is making contact with the ground. To be honest, I don't use this data point that often, but many people do. You may have heard the cadence to aim for is 180 steps per minute, but this isn't always the case. I've left a link in the description below for the reasons why. The faster your feet turn over, the faster you go theoretically, but if you're shortening your step, then you probably won't go any faster. If you're taller, 180 RPMs might be too high. In this case, you can see that when I increased my pace, my legs turned over faster at the same or even longer stride length. Again, I don't consider this a crucial measurement from day to day, but you might see that over time, as you get faster, this metric will increase. So going back to the home page for this particular workout, I hope you can see how all of this data can work together and show you whether or not you are improving in your performance or not.
Okay, so those are the basics for analyzing all of this data that your device is collecting on a workout by workout basis. Do you have to care about all of this stuff? Do you have to be a nerd like me? No, of course you don't. But looking at this information occasionally will help you determine whether or not you're seeing improvements. This is a great way to look at each workout individually and see how you are performing. And looking at this information at least occasionally will help you see if the work you're doing in training is paying off, which might help boost your confidence. Conversely, if you have a particularly bad run or race, you might go into all of this data and kind of pick apart how it went poorly and what you can do next time. This kind of information is a great way to see whether or not all of the work and all of the training and all of the hours and all of the miles are actually paying off. My question for you today is this: how often, if ever, do you go in and look at your workout information, and what do you do with it when you do? Please leave thoughts, questions, comments, and suggestions in the comment section down below. And as always, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Don't forget, I will be live on Thursday, so make sure you subscribe and come back for that. That is it for me today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Go find your awesome. Until next time, happy running.